Today's Diana Prince is Gabs Hayes, a renowned mindset and lifestyle strategist, author, and speaker. She's the driving force behind the Balance is BS movement, inspiring women worldwide to eliminate life's clutter and prioritize the essentials. She also co-founded The Brave Start, aiding product professionals in launching and growing their coaching and consulting endeavors. She was once confined by corporate pressures and her own fears, but she's now transformed her life and champions others to break free from similar bounds. Gab's journey reflects a deep dedication to personal growth, impacting lives beyond the professional realm, as she enjoys adventures with her family and books. Join me in welcoming Gabs Hayes. Hi, Gabs. Welcome to Diana Prince.
Hi, it's so nice to be here. Thank you for having me.
So we're going to talk about balance today, and it seems like the most overused word these days. It's everywhere. So I'm so happy to have you on to talk about it with me, and I am really, really excited to hear your insights about it.
Yes, I would agree with you. It's an elusive word that we hear far too many times.
No one can figure out how to do it. But what I want to do is, before we dive into balance, I would love to get a little bit of your backstory. So I know that you've built a successful business and a thriving community for women who are feeling overwhelmed. And of course, that brings the whole balance thing into the picture. But can you give me a little bit about, can you share a little bit about your own journey and what inspired you to create the space, the community?
Yeah, absolutely. So I was, your very traditional corporate climber in the early parts of my career. And I was doing everything I could to get to the next stage, which always meant, prioritizing work over everything else. And then I started having, more kids and adding to our family. And it always felt like I was chasing this thing that didn't exist. And I wanted my career and I loved my career, but I also loved my kids. And it felt like there wasn't a space for me to have both. And so I started exiting corporate and working for startups and working for consulting firms and kind of bouncing around, just trying to find this culture that allowed me to have both. And when I couldn't find it, I just went out on my own to make it myself.
Wonderful, wonderful. And what would you say was the biggest challenge that you faced in doing the transition?
Actually, what I will say to you is balance or lack thereof got a lot harder when I went out on my own because I was no longer working for someone else or doing other projects that I was assigned to. I was doing things that I was really passionate about and that I really loved. And so there was no, stopping work from interrupting my life because I was doing my life's work. And so for me, that just took some time and adjustment to realize what new boundaries did I need to set up for my own self in this new structure now that no one else was telling me when I should or shouldn't be working.
Right. Everything kind of blends in together, right? And it's, as long as the kids are fed and they're happy, you can stay at your desk the whole day. So, with your coaching business, can you, give me a little insight of what are the biggest challenges that you see women facing in general, when they are feeling overwhelmed in their lives and in their businesses? Do you work mostly with solopreneurs, entrepreneurs, or professional women in the corporate environments, or, who generally is your client base?
Yeah, so I find that my client base is tending to land toward solopreneurs or early stage entrepreneurs. And I think it's for that exact reason that we hear, right? Go out and build your own business and it's all about freedom and time freedom and money freedom and schedule freedom. But like you said, you get to this point where it's like, as long as the kids are fed, I could sit behind this laptop all day long. And so what I find then is a lot of these women start to have additional pressure on themselves because now their business is their baby. So it's like, okay, that the human babies are fed, but have I fed the business baby today? Right. And so that part has become harder. So I think some of the things that I see a lot of my clients struggling with the most is they know they need to take some risk, but they're scared. And part of that is because of that overwhelm, right? Overwhelm just is that thing that tells you you don't have all the answers, you're not ready to make the next decision, you should stay right where you are. And so even though they're feeling this pull to make a difference or make a change, they're a little bit scared to do that. And so we, just figure out what are those roadblocks and how do we clear them. But some of the other things are they started building a business for other people and not for themselves. I mean that in the sense of I did the exact same thing. I was a full-time consultant when I went out on my own. And so I just went out on my own and launched a full-time consultancy doing the exact same thing because it was familiar, it was quote unquote easy. And so that takes some time too, I think, to figure out what intuitively is the business you should be doing that's more in alignment with the impact you want to leave on this world.
So let's elaborate a little bit on that one. So basically, when you went out on your own, you found, I guess, mentor. Did you find mentors that that gave you the let's say the roadmap to building a business?
I wish.
Well, I think what I'm get to is like, I could tell you from my standpoint is that, I had an online mentor and basically what gave me the inkling to get, I was also in corporate, and at 50 years old, I decided that what I knew is that I didn't want to be doing the same job, by the time I turned 55. So I put it in motion and it turned out to be, I dove into photography, but basically I learned how to put a business together using somebody else's roadmap and somebody else's template. That's what I meant. So you don't necessarily create the business that fits you. You're creating somebody else's business.
Yeah, I guess in a way, because the reason I even went out on my own and got started was I had a girlfriend who was a few years ahead of me, and definitely I would consider, a mentor, who was getting too much work and she needed help supporting those projects. So I side hustled for a while. And so I think that's what said to me, okay, you can go do this thing full time on your own. But I didn't know about all of the business mentors and these people that you could, connect with. And I think when I got started 4 years ago as well, it wasn't as big of a online community as it is today to be able to find mentors to really help you, create that step-by-step plan or things to avoid, which I think is the most help of all of it. When I say I didn't build something intentionally, it was just that consulting was not really where my passion is. It's not really what I want to be doing long term, but it's because it was an easier transition because it's what I was already doing and I knew I was good at it. And so I fell in that same kind of perfectionist trap of, well, this is work that you're really good at. You already know how it works. You already have all the tools and systems. And so it became easier to, I guess, stick my neck out there and get started when I had never envisioned myself being an entrepreneur either. But I will say, in those last 4 years, I have learned a ton of things that I would do totally differently if I could and do differently now in the future.
Got it. Got it. So then what would you say are the practical strategies that one can implement to start feeling more in control? I can tell you from you made a point about the fact that when you're building a business, you don't always, build, you don't have everything. Let's just put it in general. You don't have everything figured out. So you kind of go, in different directions. And that's where the overwhelm was. For me, like I said, I was building a business that kind of looked like somebody else's business. And, the practical strategies I could tell you I didn't have. And I wasn't, I felt in control I didn't feel in control. Sorry. It felt it. I didn't feel in control, but I felt that I could trust the template. So what practical strategies can somebody implement to start feeling more in control when they're building their business?
Yeah, I think the first thing I would say is don't try to do everything all at once. And that's really hard because I don't know about you, but when I got started, it was like, oh, great. Now I'm the salesperson and I'm the marketer and I'm the accountant and I'm, the operations person. I'm everything. And so I found myself just constantly looking for new ideas or new ways to do every part of the business, especially if something didn't click right away. And for me, that was one of my biggest parts of the overwhelm was I was running in 75 different directions at full speed all day, every day. I would say slow down. if you have an area that you either have experience in or that you already know you're doing really well at, like say you have great lead conversions or you have great social growth, don't stress yourself about what every other expert out there is saying you should be doing while you're still getting the other parts of your business stood up and structured. I think that's one of the biggest things. And then the other thing is I don't know about you, but when I got started, like self-care and taking care of myself went completely out the window. I was working probably more than I ever have in my entire life. And that came back to bite me. So I will say, as easy as it is to really become one with your business and really dive into it, don't forget that you are a human being and you are your own person and you need to make time and space for that as well.
Right, right. And what steps, can one take to have a little bit more self-care, in their daily grind? Because as they're trying to get their goals done and everything like that, what would you say to a woman who isn't exactly balancing it out yet?
One thing I will say that I have found to be the most helpful for both myself and most of my clients is take about a week and really pay attention. When do you actually focus on work? Like, when can you sit down behind your computer and really knock some stuff out that you feel really good about? And
Mhm.
I'm willing to bet you 9 times out of 10, it's not 8 to 5 like we have been conditioned in our, full-time roles. And so what I have found is, like, for me personally, I get my absolute best deep work done at night when everyone else in this house is asleep. And so what I had to do to make space for myself was stop forcing myself to sit behind this computer all day long and try to cram workout. And so instead now during the day is when I make space and time for that, whether it's, just getting out for a walk, or if I am feeling overwhelmed about something, I step outside and just, put my feet in the ground and take a few deep breaths. And so it doesn't have to be these, large, luxurious self-care things that are super expensive or, take a lot of time. But more so, I say find where your brain naturally flows in a schedule and then build your own schedule around that. So that way you're not trying to like fight against the curve and really fight against the grain to build when your brain or your body is not ready for that.
So tell me, when you were trying to force it and you were trying to work like the 8 to 5, is is that something you learned that it had to happen between 8 to 5? Because I had a similar experience just finding the ebb and flow of my productivity, and I would love to hear your insights on that.
Yeah, I will say it was probably a subconsciously learned thing,
Hmm.
especially because I went from doing the same work that I was doing as a full-time employee to doing it on my own. I think I had this natural, like, people are looking for me. And what if I'm not behind my computer at 1:30 on a Tuesday? Like, what's going to happen? Am I going to miss something? And the reality is I learned I could start making that more space when I started surrounding myself with other women who were building businesses as well. And, some of my favorite examples is like I would email them and I would get an auto response back that says, I check my emails once every 24 hours. Please expect to, get a response back within 48 hours. And I was like, whoa, I could just say that. I could just do that. And so it was those kind of things. And I will say that the biggest key for me personally was coming from consulting where it's very, very meeting heavy. I was taking meetings with anyone and everyone who wanted to talk to me every single day of the week. There was no boundaries on when I was taking meetings. And I finally woke up and I was like, I hate taking meetings on Mondays. Like that is just not for me. And so I figured out I just don't. I don't have to. It's my business, my rules. And so I will, here and there, like today we are recording on a Monday and that's fine. But in general, my Monday calendar does not have any schedules on it because that helps me ease back into the week a little bit better and help me show up, the way I really want to.
Fact, it actually took me quite a while to break those, and they weren't even stuff that when I transitioned from corporate, it took me a while to break those habits, and give myself permission to do things outside of what I was used to. So I can certainly relate there, and it's once you get there, and once you give yourself, it's fabulous, isn't it? How do you feel
Yeah.
about it now?
And I think it's something that I still sometimes struggle with. Like
Mhm.
a couple weeks ago, I was setting, kind of restructuring my calendar again and when I was going to take meetings. And I was like, I like to work at night. Why am I not opening up my calendar to meet with really creative people in the evenings sometimes? So it's one of those
Mhm.
things that I think also we have to give ourselves grace that we have to break. I love that you called it a habit because I think that's very true. We have to break ourselves from the habits that aren't serving us anymore, and we can't do all of them at once, but we also haven't discovered all of them yet. So what works for you this month or this quarter may not work next quarter or next year, and be okay with that flexibility and trying something different. I think is the healthiest mindset you can give yourself and your business, to be willing to flex and grow as needed.
I like that because we don't know what we don't know right now. No, it's funny how it occurs to you. Like you're looking at your calendar one day, and that light bulb goes off, and I'm like, why does this look like this? I can definitely be more flexible here. And that actually happened to me just with a workout routine, and for whatever reason, workouts had to happen in the morning, in the morning. And I don't know where I think it comes from the fact that I used to work out before I went to work, my day job. And so I started, to break that habit. It took literally like 3 months, but I started, challenging myself on, I put all my workout stuff. I took all the obstacles out of the way. And now it's like, okay, now, but the time slot was always in the morning. And then I realized that's when I'm my most productive.
Mhm.
And every time I try to work out in the morning, what happens is I could get on the Peloton, I could get on my yoga mat. My brain is still hashing out a million ideas. So this took, you're going to laugh, probably a good year before I realized, well, why not work out? At the end of the day, when your brain is naturally just shutting down and you can get on that yoga mat and not work so hard, whatever that looks like, it's just a more natural flow. And it never occurred to me, this is a freaking year. So giving you giving you that balance, you're not going to figure it out all the time. You're not going to figure out what is, where you're getting stuck, but eventually it comes to, and you get to it, and little by little you start undoing all these things that you were just so used to doing. That the fact that I talked about how I was stuck, I that leads me into the next question for you, to be quite honest. So there is sorry, I have to kind of pause here. Okay, that's an edit point. I'm just noting it. Okay, so what advice would you give a woman who is feeling stuck? Let's say the example that I just gave, and whatever reason she doesn't know how to move, even something that small forward, much less how to transition, from, into her dream life. What would you, what advice would you give that woman?
First, I would say, no, you're not alone. Anybody who has it quote unquote figured out or makes it look really simple, they've had to go through the same journey and are probably still going through it. So I think that's the very first part, because when we feel stuck, we feel alone. And I think that could not be further from the truth. Then the other part I would say is, this is where community and people in your corner really come into play. And whether that is people who live in your house, other people who are building businesses, a paid mentor, whatever it may be, because when you're in it so deeply, and I love that you shared this example that it took a year, because you were in it every day. So you couldn't necessarily see all the clues. You need outsiders to help you find those blind spots, to see where you're stuck, what's causing those feelings. Because when you're in it so deeply, you just can't see it in the same way. And so I would challenge you, if you don't have community or people that you're checking in with. I always call them my brainstorm battle buddies, and I have multiple of them that we meet once a week. And it's just like, here's what's going on for the week. Here's what I'm trying to do in the business, or here's what I'm going through personally. Because sometimes you just need someone to say, well, have you tried working out in the afternoon? Or for someone to say, you already have all the answers you need to make that decision. Just move forward and then like, let's learn from it. Because I think so many times we're waiting to have all the perfect pieces to make this decision. And like, let's be real, that's just not going to happen. We're only going to be able to make decisions with the information we have at this time. But this also goes back to if you look at your business and yourself as continually growing, you'll be okay with making an immediate decision with what you have today and then learning from it and making pivots or changes once you've done that. And I love that you two were sharing, about how your brain was when you would try to get on the Peloton and try to get on the yoga mat, because that's how I discovered I do my best work at night. Is I would try to go to bed at like a standard time, so I could go to bed, with my husband and things like that. And I would toss and turn and toss and turn and toss and turn. And I'd be up till 2, 3 a.m. because my brain was just going and it was solving all these problems. And it was
like, wait a minute, the ideas are flowing and it's,
yeah.
get out of bed. What are you doing in there?
And my husband, he's the one who finally would be like, just go downstairs, because whatever you're doing up here is not working. Just go downstairs and work. And it's funny because that is the time where like me and my whiteboards, we go to town and we get all sorts of things figured out. And so yeah, it's that kind of thing that like you need outside people to support you. And that would be my biggest encouragement is don't think you have to do this alone, and don't be scared to not have the answers and to speak up and say like, I'm stuck, I need help, I don't know. And another thing, I think many of us who do become successful business owners, it's because we have this perfectionist, this overthinker inside of us that really wants to do good work. And so something that I have found that has helped me get over that is I will call one of my brainstorm battle buddies and I will say to them, I think I know what decision I want to make, but I'm overthinking it. Can I give you all the inputs and can you just like push me forward? Like just get me off the ledge and then make me make the decision. And so I think that's the thing, is just giving yourself that space of permission to have those conversations will really change how you feel about the business that you're building and you yourself as a business owner.
Awesome. So let's go on. Now that you're, doing what you love, what would you tell your younger self?
I think there's a couple things I would tell her. One would be just get started. It's scary. There's unknowns. You're going to fail. By your current definitions, you're going to fail. But just get out there and do it because you learn from each and every one of those. And then I think the other one would be don't be afraid to be who I actually am. I, for the longest time, got stuck in this, like, okay, well, this is what the marketing gurus say I have to do about my marketing materials. And this is what the salespeople say I have to do about doing sales. And so I was constantly trying to fit myself in those boxes. And of course, it felt rough and it felt icky and it didn't flow with my business. So I think those would be the two biggest things I would tell her is like, just get started. Don't be afraid of failing and be yourself while you're doing it, because you're going to learn those lessons much faster.
Great. Okay, so you started the movement of balance is BS, right? What does that mean to you, and how can we shift our mindset away from the unrealistic ideal of balance? What is it?
Yeah, so we've touched on this a good bit today, which I'm really excited to be sharing. And for me, it is that exact thing that when I was still working full time, it was like work had to stop at a certain time and life had to start at a certain time, and they weren't supposed to intermingle, and they were supposed to be fairly equal in my effort, my attention, how much I loved them, how much I gave to them. And as we mentioned earlier, it's elusive. I have yet to meet a woman who has ever, quote unquote, found balance and figured it out. And so I don't understand why we're still chasing it. We just need to stop chasing this thing that doesn't exist. And so for me, it was giving myself permission that my work and my life and my passions, they're all integrated, but they are not balanced. And there are times where my work needs more of me. But there are also plenty of times that my home life needs more of me. And I don't want to continue making myself feel guilty when I need to make those swings one way or the other. Which is funny because I'm a Libra. So like balance is all about who I am, which is probably why I struggled with it for so long. But it's also why I started this movement of Balance is BS, because I see far too many women get stuck and beating themselves up and feeling really guilty about this thing that doesn't actually exist. So my thing is like, just stop chasing it and chase your own life, your own dreams, your own joy, and whatever that looks like for this season is perfectly okay. And know that it's going to change.
Great. So last question for you. And this one, I love this question because, it's always gives me a little insight, on each guest. We all have a favorite book, and I want to know what yours is. The one of all time, fiction or nonfiction, that had the most impact on your life.
Okay, I was ready for this question, especially because I love reading and I had let that go. Part of that balance thing was like, oh, I don't have time for that. And so I've picked that back up this year, actually, which I'm really glad. But when you asked me, I had to go get it off my bookshelf because I was like, okay, I'm going to judge by the book that has the most sticky notes. Like that's the one that my brain could completely relate to. And so for me, it was Lessons in Chemistry by Bonnie Garmis. And I think for a couple of reasons, like if you've read this, or they even came out with a show on Apple TV based on the book, she just was blazing trails and setting, waves far beyond her time. And I think I also related to this really scrappiness that she leaned into as a mom, like where she's just like, I just have to feed my kid. I got to pay my bills and I'm going to start consulting. Like, I don't think it was ever heard of as a woman was consulting at that time, but she got in there and did it. And so there were just so many moments in that book that I felt like I could really relate to, but also that it was just that like fire. It was like, yes, keep going, keep doing good work because there are people out there who need you, need your talents and need to hear what you have to bring to the world.
Wonderful. All right. So I'm going to give you the floor now. I want you to talk about your community a little bit more. Tell us a little bit more about it. And, do you have anything that you want to, any offerings with it right now or?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. So yeah, my community, I call it the overwhelmed and over it community because it's just that. It's for those of us that just need space to vent, to be real with what's going on, but also get some support and guidance to just get out of whatever has us stuck right now. And I purposely made it pay what you can because I want that space to be safe and sacred. And I want everyone to have a chance to access it no matter where you're at in your business or chasing your dreams. And so no special offerings other than the doors are open. You can join us at any time.
I think you pay what you can is amazing. It's an amazing offer. I never heard of that.
Thank you. What it is I do 2 live coachings a month, and then everything else is text-based coaching on Slack. So as you need anything, you pop in, ask me or anyone in the community, we can help support you. But I remember what it was like getting my business off the ground. I don't know about you, but I quote unquote call myself successful now, but it doesn't feel so far removed where like that those days were hard and we were struggling and you just wanted help and you weren't sure where to go or who to get that from. And so that's my, real focus there is to be able to just make space for women who need it, no matter where you're at in your journey.
And if they have a question about, they're vacillating over where their workout schedule should be in the day, they could just pop it there in the Slack channel.
That's right.
I probably would have saved myself a lot of trouble right there. That's fantastic. Thank you for sharing that. And I think the listeners can find your community right on your website, correct?
Yep. If you go to gabshays.com, you can find us there. And then also you can connect with me on Instagram. I'm at highly.inquisitive and I can get you connected that way as well.
Wonderful. So I'm going to close it out. Thank you for tuning in to Diana Prince Lives Next Door. If you want to learn about Gabs and the Brave Start, be sure to visit the website shown in the description. Stay curious, stay inspired, and keep seeking out extraordinary stories. Until next time, this is Angela, and I'm signing off. Thank you, Gabs, for joining me.
Thank you.